My name is Ellen McCown, and I was 27 the night the life I built cracked open like thin glass. If you had asked anyone who knew me back in college, they would have described me as steady, predictable in a comforting way. I was the girl who color-coded her notebooks, scheduled her study sessions, and believed stability was the greatest love language. That's why I clicked so quickly with Colin Rivers when we met during sophomore year. He was this whirlwind of charm and ambition wrapped in marketing textbooks and half-finished creative projects. I was majoring in software engineering, structured and pragmatic, but somehow we fit like two mismatched puzzle pieces that still snap together. After graduation, we moved into a modest apartment in a mid-sized Midwest city full of cheap furniture, shared optimism, and the kind of late-night dreams only people in their 20s believe in wholeheartedly. For 3 years, I thought we were building something solid, future-proof even. I relocated for his first big job, turned down a better salary to stay close, and when he was laid off during a restructuring, I paid the rent alone for half a year. I worked overtime while he spiraled, comforting him during long nights filled with doubts and rejection emails. I covered his certification course when he said it would change everything. I cooked, I encouraged, I stayed patient. And he rewarded my loyalty with affectionate gestures and spontaneous adventures that made me feel like we were a team. Back then, I thought love meant devotion. I thought partnership meant sacrifice. I thought giving was what good women did. But about a year ago, Colin landed a job at a trendy ad agency, and our rhythm shifted subtly at first, then violently. He started staying late for team building nights, going to weekend networking brunches, and texting me less and less. I'd send a simple, harmless message, "Everything okay? Heading home soon." He'd respond hours later with, "Stop hovering," or, "Why do you always need to know where I am?" The words stung because they weren't true. I wasn't controlling, I was caring. If roles were reversed, he would have wanted to know I was safe. At least that's what I believed. The red flags piled up. He came home smelling like perfume I didn't own. His phone lived on silent mode screen, flipped over. When I asked gentle, reasonable questions, "Rough day, want to talk?" he acted like I was interrogating him. "You're paranoid, Ellen. You're suffocating me, Ellen. You don't trust me, Ellen." And even though I knew better, deep down I started doubting myself. Was I doing too much? Asking too much? Loving too much? But then a coffee receipt fell out of his jacket pocket. A cafe across town, time-stamped smack in the middle of the overtime meeting he'd claimed to be stuck in. I didn't confront him. I tucked it away quietly in the drawer of truths I wasn't ready to face. What really shattered me happened on a rainy Thursday night, the air thick with the storm pressing against our windows. I'd come home early and made his favorite stir-fry something warm, something grounding. Maybe an olive branch to pull us back to who we used to be. He came in around 9, soaked not from the rain, but from rushing. His cheeks were flushed, his hair messy, not the kind caused by weather. I smiled gently. "Dinner's ready. How was your day?" He didn't look at the food, didn't look at me. "We need to talk, Ellen." My stomach dropped. Those 4 words never lead to anything good. "Okay, what's going on?" He crossed his arms, avoiding my eyes. "This isn't working anymore. You're too controlling. Always asking where I am, what I'm doing. It's suffocating." I blinked, stunned. Controlling, Colin. "I ask because I care. If you're out late, I want to know you're safe." He scoffed, rolling his eyes. "Please. That's jealousy disguised as concern." A slow smirk crept across his face, the kind people wear when they think they've already won the argument. "You know who doesn't do that," he continued. "Jenna. She trusts me. She lets me breathe." Jenna Lawson, his glamorous new coworker, the one he couldn't stop talking about 2 months ago, the creative genius with the sleek hair and expensive shoes. I'd met her once. She was polite enough. Too polite. Perfectly polished, the kind of woman who never touched her glass at company mixers because she wanted both hands free to gesture dramatically mid-story. My voice was soft. What does Jenna have to do with this? He stopped pacing and leaned against the counter, almost proud. "Everything. I've been seeing her for months. She gets me, Ellen. She's exciting. She doesn't clip my wings." It felt like someone had punched through my ribs. "So you're admitting you've been cheating and blaming me for being concerned about you." "It's not cheating like that. You pushed me away with your neediness." Neediness. After 3 years of carrying us, after nights of holding him during breakdowns, after paying bills while he found himself, I swallowed hard. "So what now?" "I'm moving in with her," he said simply. "Her place is bigger, closer to work. You can keep the apartment. Call it a parting gift." A parting gift. Like I was some intern he was dismissing with a pat on the head. Inside, something in me snapped, but not with anger, with clarity. I stood up slowly, walked to the key hook, and placed our apartment keys on the table. Calm, collected, unshaken. His smirk widened. "See, this is what I mean. You're so controlling for asking where I am." I met his eyes. Then I said quietly, too calmly, "You'll love what comes next." His smirk faltered. "What does that mean?" I didn't answer. I simply turned and began packing a small travel bag. He followed me, scoffing, muttering that I was being dramatic. But I wasn't. I was done. No more crying, no more pleading, no more compromising with someone who weaponized my love. By the time he slammed the door behind him on the way to Jenna's, I was already sitting on the couch, staring at the wall, feeling the entire world tilt but not collapse. Something was ending, yes, but something else, something I didn't yet have the words for, was beginning. The morning after Colin walked out, the apartment felt unnaturally still. Sunlight filtered through the blinds in thin, quiet lines falling across the bed, where his absence felt like a hollow space rather than a wound. I sat up slowly, realizing it was the first time in a long while I wasn't waking up waiting for someone else's mood to dictate my day. My phone buzzed. Colin coming by Saturday to grab my stuff. No apology, no regret, not even a trace of the man who used to hold my hand during thunderstorms. Just logistics, detached and clinical. I set the phone down without responding. Something inside me flattened into calm, the kind that comes right before a major decision. And that decision arrived the second I opened my laptop. Buried in my inbox was the job offer I had nearly forgotten about, the senior developer role at a European tech firm. The same email I ignored months ago because I thought Colin needed me here. That version of me no longer existed. I reread the offer carefully. Relocation package, coastal office, flexible hours, generous salary. A life I had once wanted but convinced myself I wasn't allowed to choose. I clicked accept. There was no dramatic gasp, no trembling hands, just a quiet understanding that I was finally stepping out of a life that had been shrinking around me for years. I packed methodically over the next few days. 1 suitcase for essentials, 2 boxes to ship, a few things donated. The apartment looked less like a home and more like a space I'd been renting temporarily, waiting for my real life to begin. A friend agreed to sublet. HR finalized my paperwork. I booked my one-way ticket. Colin didn't call, didn't show up early, didn't ask where I was going. That silence told me everything I needed to know. The coastal town I moved to greeted me with warm stone streets, ocean air, and a soft evening breeze that carried the scent of salt and distant music. My temporary apartment overlooked the sea, its balcony wrapped in bougainvillea that swayed as if welcoming me. I stood there for a long time, letting the waves fill the emptiness inside me. For the first time in years, the quiet didn't feel threatening. It felt like mine. A new routine formed without effort. Morning runs along the promenade. Afternoons at the office, where my team actually valued my work. Evenings spent wandering narrow, lantern-lit streets or practicing the local language with the cafe barista, who always smiled warmly but never asked intrusive questions. And when the loneliness crept in, because it did, I booked a session with an online therapist, a woman with kind eyes and blunt honesty. "You're not controlling," she said during our second meeting. "You were overgiving. There's a difference." Her words unclenched something in my chest. I didn't cry, not right away. Healing comes in waves, some small, some violent. Mine were gentle at first. Little by little, I began to recognize myself again. News of Colin arrived slowly, like faint echoes carried across an ocean. Mike, a mutual friend, messaged me one evening. "Hate to bring this up, but things with Colin and Jenna are bad. Really bad." I didn't ask for details, but he told me anyway. Jenna had quit her job to join a questionable startup opportunity. She convinced Colin to invest. She drained their savings. She picked fights, screamed, accused him of holding her back. She cheated with someone from her old circle. Then she left him, broke, embarrassed, and alone. The man who accused me of suffocating him now lived inside the exact chaos he once romanticized. I didn't feel vindicated. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel anything. I had left that version of him and myself behind on purpose. 6 months into my new life, an email appeared in my inbox. "Colin, I heard you moved abroad. I hope you're okay. I miss talking. Can we catch up?" I archived it without opening it twice. A week later, a text from an unknown number. "It's me. Please respond. I made a mistake. Jenna ruined everything. I need to explain." Then voicemails. calls from blocked IDs, long messages overflowing with remorse, excuses, nostalgia. You were right. I didn't appreciate what we had. I miss you. Please don't ignore me. Then frustration. This is cruel, Ellen. You're proving you were controlling all along. Be an adult and talk to me. The irony was almost poetic. His unraveling arrived just as my own life was settling into a quiet, steady rhythm. I woke up with the sound of waves instead of accusations. I went to sleep knowing I owed no one an apology for my existence. I didn't respond to a single message. Some doors don't need to be slammed shut. Sometimes they simply stay closed because you decide you're done walking through rooms that suffocate you. The messages from Colin didn't stop. They only changed shape, tone, and temperature as the months went on. At first they were apologetic, then desperate, then accusatory, then sentimental, then angry. Then sentimental again, as if he were spinning a dial and hoping one setting would pull me back. I didn't answer a single one. My silence wasn't revenge. It was self-respect. And maybe that's why the updates from back home felt distant, almost like hearing gossip about strangers whose names you vaguely remember. The first major update came from Mike again. A short message at first. Things got worse. But then he followed with a wall of text. Jenna's business venture had been more than reckless. It was an actual pyramid scheme wrapped in flashy branding and fake testimonials. Colin had poured nearly everything into its savings credit, even borrowing from coworkers, under the promise of getting in early. When the scheme imploded, Jenna vanished. And Colin, well, he was left with debt collectors calling a ruined reputation and coworkers pretending not to see him in the hallway. His apartment building eventually evicted him after months of unpaid rent. He moved back in with his mother, a woman who had always treated me as though I were a temporary solution to her son's problems, rather than a partner. Oddly, none of it hit me the way people seem to expect. Even Mike treaded lightly, sending messages like, "Sorry, I know this must be weird to hear." But it wasn't weird. It wasn't anything. It was simply the outcome of choices I hadn't made. While Colin's life was unraveling, mine was quietly taking root. My job felt like a fresh chapter every day. New challenges, new projects, a team that respected me without questioning my competence. The office overlooked the sea-wide windows, flooding the workspace with natural light that made everything feel softer, calmer. My morning runs grew longer. My language skills improved. I began recognizing familiar faces on the street, vendors, neighbors, the grandmother who sold fresh flowers every Saturday. People smiled at me, not out of politeness, but because my presence had become part of their routine. And slowly, steadily, I began to feel whole again. Not healed all at once, but mending in small uneven pieces. In one therapy session, after weeks of avoiding the topic, my therapist asked, "Do you want closure with him?" I shook my head immediately. "Closure is a conversation where both people care about the truth," I said softly. "He doesn't want truth, he wants comfort, and I'm not his comfort anymore." She nodded, and it felt like someone had drawn a warm blanket around my shoulders. Still, Colin kept trying. One evening, I was cooking dinner, garlic, tomatoes, olive oil. The kitchen windows opened to let in the sea breeze when my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. "Ellen, please. Just pick up. I need you. I've lost everything." His words didn't feel heavy. They didn't even sting. I slid the notification away and kept chopping basil. Another night, another message. "I'm in therapy now. I'm fixing myself. You always wanted that, right?" It was never about him being fixed. It was about him being honest. And he never chose honesty until his comfort vanished. Then came the emotional theatrics. Voicemails filled with sniffles and labored breathing. "I can't sleep. I can't eat. I'm not the same without you." Then the nostalgia. "Do you remember our first road trip, the diner with the blue chairs? The way you laughed when it rained on us?" I remembered, but memories don't obligate you to return. Then guilt. "Everyone's abandoned me. You're proving them right." Then anger. "You think you're so much better because you ran away? You'll end up alone too, Ellen." I sat on my balcony that night, watching the waves crash below, listening to the wind carry away the last of his words. Being alone didn't scare me. Being diminished did, and I'd already escaped that. It wasn't just Colin. His mother reached out too. Her voice was sharp, the same tone that once made me feel like a poorly performing employee rather than her son's partner. "Ellen, this is ridiculous. Colin is suffering. You walked out without even trying. You should talk to him. Fix things. Fix things." As though his choices were a leaky faucet and I was holding the wrench. I ended the call mid-sentence, her indignant voice cutting off abruptly. A small, decisive act of self-preservation. But the strangest attempt came from his friend's circle people who used to ignore me at gatherings, now suddenly invested in my moral obligations. Messages from his longtime friend Darren. He's a mess. At least talk to him. His coworker Hannah, he regrets everything. Don't be cold. Even Sarah Collins' closest confidant, the one who used to whisper jokes behind my back, sent a long, self-righteous monologue. It's cruel that you're ignoring him while he's struggling. No wonder he felt trapped. Trapped. The word hung in the air like sour perfume. I screenshot the message, saved it for therapy later, and blocked her. Because the truth was simple. People will always defend the person who makes the most noise. I just wasn't making noise anymore. Months passed. The ocean changed colors with the seasons. My life grew steadier. Not dramatic, not extraordinary, just peaceful. And peace? Peace was something I didn't realize I'd been starving for. But the story wasn't done. Because Colin had one last desperate attempt waiting. Something loud. Something public. Something he thought would force me into giving him the closure he demanded. He was wrong. And when it happened, everything he'd been trying to avoid, humiliation, exposure, finality, arrived all at once. The reunion invitation showed up in my inbox on a quiet Sunday afternoon, a simple group message from Mike, gathering old college friends for a video call. Nothing dramatic, nothing emotional, just a casual, "Hey everyone, let's catch up." I hesitated for a moment. Not because I was afraid of seeing familiar faces, but because the past had a way of inserting itself where it wasn't welcome. Still, curiosity nudged me. I clicked join. The screen filled with people I hadn't seen in years, laughing, waving, catching up on careers, marriages, kids, relocations. The conversation flowed easily like a river that didn't care who had drifted away. I sat on my balcony camera, angled toward me, with the ocean behind sunset, washing everything in gold. A few old friends commented on the view. "Wow, Ellen, that's gorgeous. You look great. Europe suits you." I smiled, replied politely, kept the conversation light. Then her name appeared in the participant list, Jenna Lawson, and beside her Colin Rivers. My breath didn't hitch, my pulse didn't jump. I simply blinked once, then twice, absorbing the absurdity. Of course they'd show up. They always followed the spotlight, always seeking an audience, even if each other was the only thing they had left. But when Jenna's camera turned on, she wasn't the sleek, polished woman I remembered. Her hair was unkempt, makeup smudged, eyes hollow, in a way that didn't belong to someone who lived in the moment. She barely said hello, then disappeared off camera to argue with someone in the background. Colin appeared next. He looked worse, pale, thinner, unshaven, wearing a hoodie that didn't fit and eyes that darted nervously. Not a single trace of arrogance left. Life had wrung him dry. He scanned the screen, then froze when he saw me. "Ellen," his voice cracked through the static. I kept my tone neutral. "Hello." Everyone felt the tension instantly. The conversation stuttered to a stop like someone had hit pause. People exchanged glances but pretended they were adjusting their settings. Colin forced a laugh, high brittle. "Wow, you look different." "I'm well," I said simply. He swallowed hard. "Yeah, I can see that." For a few minutes, he kept quiet, hovering in the corner of the screen, like a ghost, waiting to be acknowledged. I focused on the group, not him. I talked about my job, my morning runs, the festivals I had visited. I didn't mention him once, and maybe that's what cracked him. Because suddenly he unmuted. "Ellen, can I say something?" The screen went silent. No one dared speak. I didn't answer at first, so he kept going. "I messed everything up," he said, voice trembling. "I was stupid. I got caught up in all the wrong things. I should have appreciated what I had. I should have appreciated you." Someone awkwardly coughed. Someone else pretended their connection froze. He wasn't talking to the group. He was performing for me. "I lost my job," he continued. "My apartment. Jenna stole from me. Everyone knows what happened. I'm alone, Ellen. Completely alone." His chin quivered. "I'm trying to fix things. I'm in therapy. I'm working on myself. I know it's late, but I hoped maybe we could talk. Just talk. Please." The word please lingered like a stubborn ember. The old version of me might have felt obligated to soothe him, to offer comfort, to be his emotional safety net. But I wasn't that woman anymore. I spoke calmly, not cruelly, just honestly. "Colin, I hope you heal, truly. But your journey isn't my responsibility anymore." His face crumpled. "So that's it? You're just done? After everything?" "You ended it," I replied. "You walked away from me long before I left the country." He shook his head violently. "But we had something real. You had someone who loved you," I said quietly. "And you chose someone who fed your ego. That was your decision." He pressed his palms against his forehead. You can't be serious. You can't just erase us. I didn't erase anything I said. I outgrew it. The group stared frozen, unsure whether to intervene or disconnect. Colin's desperation snapped into anger. Oh, I get it, he spat. You think you're better now. You think you're too good for everyone back home. You're living by the damn ocean, posting sunsets, pretending you're enlightened. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't flinch. Peace isn't pretending, I said. It's choosing. He opened his mouth to argue, but I continued softly. I don't hate you, Colin. I don't wish you harm. But I've moved on. Completely. My life isn't tied to your chaos anymore. His breathing turned ragged. Ellen, don't do this. I need you. I shook my head. What you need is to learn to stand without leaning on the person you broke. He stared at me stunned into silence. I reached for my phone, angled it briefly toward the balcony railing. The sun was dipping into the ocean, painting the sky in golds and violets. Waves rolled steadily below, calm, constant, unbothered. No caption. No explanation. Just a view of the life I built without him. Then I turned off my camera, muted my mic, and clicked block on his private chat before his next message could even appear. A few seconds later, I exited the call entirely. I didn't apologize. I didn't announce my departure. I simply left. Some exits don't require a goodbye. The call ended. The screen went black, and for the first time in a long time, I felt something settle fully inside me. Not anger, not vindication, not victory. Closure. The real kind, the quiet kind, that doesn't come from dramatic confrontations or emotional apologies, but from understanding that a chapter has truly irrevocably ended because you no longer belong in it. I sat on my balcony afterward, legs pulled up to my chest, the evening breeze cool against my skin. The sea below murmured softly, the waves rolling in and out like a patient heartbeat. The sun had already slipped beneath the horizon, but the sky still glowed with remnants of gold. This was home now, not because I ran here, but because I finally allowed myself to choose something just for me. I'd spent years shrinking myself, worrying about Colin's moods, carrying his burdens, absorbing his insecurities until they clung to me like a second skin. I thought love meant endurance. That devotion meant softness without limits. That stability made me boring. But living here, breathing here, starting over here, it taught me something I should have learned long ago. Peace isn't passive, it's a choice, a powerful one. It's waking up and feeling your own thoughts instead of someone else's expectations pressing against you. It's returning home and not having to brace yourself for the weather inside the walls. It's knowing your worth isn't measured by the chaos you can withstand. Life slowly filled with small, steady joys. I got to know the people in my building, the elderly woman who left fresh lemons outside everyone's doors, the couple with a golden retriever who always tried to sneak into my apartment, the college student downstairs, who practiced guitar loudly but beautifully. The barista at the cafe greeted me every morning with Buongiorno Ellen and gradually stopped switching to English because my language skills had improved enough to keep up. Weekends were for exploring. I walked along the cliffs, browsed local markets, tried recipes I used to avoid because Colin didn't like exotic flavors. I took a pottery class. I bought a plant I actually managed to keep alive. I learned to enjoy my own company. Not loneliness, solitude. There's a difference. One day after a long run, I stopped by a seaside stall for fresh juice. The man working there, someone I'd seen a dozen times but never spoken to, offered a small, easy smile. New earrings, he asked in the local language, nodding toward them. I laughed softly. Yes, a gift to myself. He grinned. Good. You deserve gifts. It wasn't flirting. Not really. Just warmth. A simple interaction that reminded me the world held gentle people too, not just those who took and took and took. Still something fluttered in me, not longing readiness. Readiness to one day open the door again, when I chose to, when it felt right, when it was mutual, steady kind. But a new relationship wasn't the point of my story. The point was that I no longer felt like a ghost inside my own life. Colin didn't contact me again after that call. Maybe he realized I meant every word. Maybe shame caught up to him. Maybe he finally understood the difference between needing someone and loving them. I didn't wonder. I didn't check. I didn't need to. He was a chapter, not my story. And Jenna, I heard she moved to another state, chasing another opportunity, leaving behind a trail of unpaid debts and burnt bridges. Their chaos consumed itself. It wasn't my concern. My only focus was forward. One night, months later, as I stood on my balcony watching the moon spill silver over the sea, I caught myself smiling, truly smiling for no reason, other than the fact that I existed in a place that didn't demand suffering as proof of loyalty. I realized something then. Leaving wasn't running away. It was returning to myself. And maybe that's what healing ultimately is, not forgetting what happened, not rewriting the past, but remembering who you were before someone tried to convince you that you were too much, too little, or somehow wrong for simply trying. I breathed in the salt air, let it fill every space that used to ache, and whispered to no one. This is freedom. Not the twisted version Colin once accused me of denying him. Not the reckless freedom Jenna worshipped. Not the kind that burns everything in its path. But the quiet kind. The kind that builds. The kind that restores. The kind that doesn't require running, only stepping forward. And I stepped forward every single day. Into a life I chose. Into peace I earned. Into stability that no one could twist into a flaw again. My story didn't end